meeting to order. I know there's a ton of information to go through. I'm Dan Paul-Amos with the Town Council. Thanks for coming out. If you are somebody who responded that they wish we had more indoor gym space, then they have a gym here at the fire department. If you'd like to volunteer for the fire department, Chief of Bell here.
I got applications.
Yeah, other people, so you're going to hear from Aaron Barthel here, Barb Osceola here, both from the council. In the back we have Ruth Jecko, the Recreation Parks Director, and Grace Tiazi is our Assistant Town Manager. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Weston Sampson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight to our second public meeting for the Avon Recreation and Parks Master Plan update. This is an exciting night tonight. We have a lot to go through. There was extensive public outreach over the course of the past few months, and today is a culmination of collecting all that data and presenting it to the public. So tonight, we're just going to introduce ourselves, go over, remind everybody if you haven't been here before or haven't heard of the process, we're going to do a brief overview of what the basic process and goals were, go over the overall timeline, and then the findings are our asset mapping exercise we went through about a month and a half ago, an online survey, and then a needs assessment, which was reaching out to all the individual stakeholder groups, and then talk about next steps. I'm Ryan Chmielewski. I'm a licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut. Here with me tonight, I have Emily Weckman, who is also a landscape architect. We work for Weston & Sampson. We're a consulting firm, about 800 employees up and down the East Coast, anywhere from engineering to scientists, aquatics, construction, landscape architecture, planning, and so on. In our Rocky Hill office, we have about 100 people. We just broke that mark recently, and so we're operating not too far away. And Emily used to be a local in Avon as well. So the basic goals of the project were to do an inventory and analysis of your athletic facilities, courts, and indoor recreational facilities. We're completing a public outreach and needs assessment process. That's what we talked about. And we're going to prioritize indoor and outdoor community needs in the short, medium, and long term. So we identified those needs over the past few months, and we'll let you know all about that. From after tonight, we'll develop a strategic plan with the town for improving your facilities, constructing new facilities, and really to meet the community's needs, safety, accessibility, and equity. And it's based on what we heard from the community. It's not coming up with something randomly. There was a lot of input from the community, so we have some clear thoughts in our heads now, but it's not quite happening for tonight. After we come up with a strategic plan, everything costs money to improve things, so we develop an implementation process with the town to include funding and phasing strategies. So we are in milestone 4. This is public meeting 2. We had our kickoff in October of 23. We did our public outreach planning during December and January. We released the online survey for the month of February and had several stakeholder meetings and opportunities to meet different stakeholder groups. We conducted this needs assessment over the course of the past few weeks. And then after tonight, we have that strategic planning in April to June and a tentatively scheduled public meeting summer, fall of 24. So the community outreach process consisted of a public meeting where we did asset mapping. I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We had an online survey with over 620 participants, which is great. And then the different stakeholder groups were town departments, athletic director in schools, sport ambassadors, meaning all the sports teams in town, and then non-sports team ambassadors, which are passive recreation programs, arts, crafts, senior center, etc. These shared findings are based on the survey and stakeholder information collected in February. During the asset mapping process, it was really a public engagement strategy that it's a strength-based public engagement strategy. There was probably about 40 to 60 people last time in the in-person meeting. We had several questions posted up on the boards. You can see on the bottom of the page, we went one by one, and the questions that were asked were, what is your one wish to shape the future of Avon Recreation and Parks? We asked that question before we even started presenting to get a non-biased opinion from all the people on why did they show up that night. After that, we led the community through what do you consider the town's greatest recreational asset? What about those assets make the Avon community better? What would strengthen those assets, and what barriers limit your participation or access to town assets? Several community members, everybody participated. I think we had 100% participation, which was great. And you could see people, we handed out sticky notes to the entire crowd, pens, pencils, we asked the questions. They wrote it down, everyone came up and put it on sticky notes and put them on the specific boards. From there, we took those boards and entered the data and generated a word cloud. A word cloud is, the bigger the text, the more often the word appeared in that data set. So what is the one wish to shape the future of Avon Recreation and Parks? You can see indoor recreation center stands out pretty significantly. Outdoor pool, trails, fields, playgrounds, pickleball, pavilions, accessibility, diamond, that's like a baseball field, not a ring diamond, and facilities. Then the second question, what do you consider the town's greatest recreational asset? And Fisher Meadows was, by and large, the most identified recreational asset. Next was Sycamore, trails, sports, hiking, parks, fields, open space. So really, you have a lot of green space and a lot of assets in town around your parks and trail systems. What about those assets make the Avon community better? It provides opportunities for your community. It brings community together for youth sports, people gathering, healthy lifestyle, really a sense of family. So that's really special about Avon and your community. And then what would strengthen those assets? Can anyone else see what stands out here? Indoor recreation center, pool, community, programs, fields, bathrooms, marketing, concessions, parking. So pretty typical things for the community, but the indoor rec center stood out once again. And then what barriers would limit your participation or access to those assets? There's a lack of parking, maintenance, flooding, lack of space, indoor space, sidewalks, accessibility. So it's, that's coming from the community. We observe those things as professionals, when we evaluate your facilities, doing the inventory analysis. But it's good to hear that our thoughts are in line and in connection with the community at large. Then the next portion was the online survey. This was a flyer that Grace put together, and it was a very nice flyer, and it gave everyone in town the opportunity to to answer questions not in a public forum. Some people don't feel comfortable speaking up in a public forum, so this is another method for them to conduct that outreach. And Emily will take you through the online survey.
Sure. So I know many of you did complete the survey. You gave that feedback to us during our first public meeting. Again, we had over 620 respondents, and you probably saw the general organization of the survey. We had the overall demographic and use assessment up front, and then there was a focus on indoor facilities and then a focus on outdoor facilities. So sometimes if you were really focused on outdoor activities, you might have not answered indoor facilities and vice versa. But we did have a great turnout for the entire survey. So we're going to run through first in that similar organization fashion. First, the demographics. The majority of people who answered, yes, they lived in Avon and who took the survey. And then how old are you? 34% were in the 35 to 44 age range, 26% was in the 45 to 54, and 13% was in the 55 to 64. So as you can see, 58% of the respondents were over the age of 45. And how do these people use the recreational facilities? 46 of the people responding to the survey were parents, and then we had participants, coaches, and non-participants was 8%. So that might be someone that was just tuning in to take the survey, provide feedback. Maybe they don't use facilities, they're an avid hiker. So we did have a good turnout of those people as well. And the town made a significant effort to try and reach the younger population as well. So let's see here, in the under 18 age range, we did get some turnout. So we did provide that opportunity for student feedback. One of the first questions was, how often do you visit the town of Avon parks and facilities outside of school and work hours? And as you can see here, the chart, the green is never, and then as you progress down the chart towards the orange colors, those are the 3 times per week. So you have frequent attendance when the orange bar is higher, and then you have, which would tend to be someone who's participating in a sport, in basketball, in soccer, so they're attending those fields multiple times during the week. The blue column is the occasional user. So you see here at Sycamore Hills, you have high attendance and an occasional user. For events, some of those summer concert events, possibly attending a pool event as well. So the most visited facilities was Fisher Meadows, Sycamore Hills, Avon High School, Sperry Park, and Buckingham. And the next slide, this is a continuation just to show how people were using some of the additional facilities. Pine Grove, Avon Middle School, and Thompson Brook. Many of the respondents did not use that facility, but those who did tended to have a higher frequency, such as at Pine Grove, they had this that 61 there. Some of the least visited facilities, as you might imagine, might be more of the facilities that offer passive recreation, Hazen Park, Foundland, and Enford Street. So these are places that are without program use. They offer a great opportunity for passive use, but there might be some marketing opportunities here for the town to consider. Which recreational facility or program offered by the Avon Recreation Parks do you or your household member participate in? Here we have, for most participation, we have passive recreation, town festivals and events, playgrounds, biking, outdoor youth rectangular fields, and outdoor swimming. Some of the least participated in events include the community gardens, adult indoor courts, and indoor exercise programs. So when we start to look at this chart, we see, as many of you know who live in Avon, you have a strong community in passive recreation. You are strong in your trails and your passive recreation. So that's what we see from that green column at the top. But what I took out of this was the next two items was the town festivals and events and playgrounds. Those types of uses are reaching many people within the town, and it was interesting to see that feedback. And then when you start to look down here, we did break out some indoor programs such as art and cooking and indoor exercise programs. Those are more of a passive indoor use. And so you start to see that there really is some desire when you start to add them up together for a active indoor and passive indoor uses as you start to look at that. So there's a wide variety of uses that are available in town, and many people are using them. Now we're going to focus on the indoor facilities and the information provided back on that part of the survey. Do you use your indoor facilities or participate in programs offered by the town? It was about a 50-50 split from the people that took the survey. And then if you did not use the indoor facilities, what was the primary reason? And as you could see, we have a lack of interest, or they didn't know what was offered, or not enough time in my lifestyle. What indoor programs would you participate in that are not currently offered? So 42% said none, that they were happy with what was offered, but of those 50%, they provide feedback, and it generated a word cloud. So you start to see people are asking for adult and youth facilities and programs for swimming, basketball, pickleball, tennis, and many other passive and active indoor programs. I pulled out some comments from the survey. So these are directly from the survey people were asking for. And when I say directly from the survey, these were categories that many people spoke to, and I just pulled one or two of those comments out from that category. Young kids camps and vacation camps, recreational space for kids to play off school hours and pickup games, ice skating, indoor swimming, more adult pickup leagues and activities for seniors and for middle schoolers, more cooking and crafts classes, indoor swimming, indoor pickleball, family and toddler-oriented programs, and again, more adult sports and exercise programs. What indoor recreation programs or facilities do you anticipate needing or wanting in the next 3 to 5 years? Indoor swimming was the dominant response there, then followed by the youth athletics, which would include for courts, which includes badminton, basketball, volleyball, followed by adult athletics, which would include pickleball, badminton. And again, what we're seeing here is that there's a desire for indoor programming for active and passive recreation. Are the town's existing indoor facilities and programs meeting the needs of you, your family, or your organization? It was close to a 50% split here. But for the people that responded no, they did have the option to provide a response as to why. And as you can see, again, these are some highlighted responses here. I would like to see a variety of indoor classes, an indoor pool. There's not enough space available to schedule various classes. We need community indoor meeting spaces. There are not enough basketball courts to meet the needs of the basketball team's practice times. They are often late in the evening or limited times for coaches. A kid-teen community center with indoor activities. It'd be nice to have an indoor pool for year-round use and swimming. And they also thought it'd be useful to have a facility to focus on for arts and theater. Not enough availability of indoor spaces for sports, such as pickleball, badminton, not enough places for teens to gather for safe activities. Nothing for younger children. And they would like to support the town of Avon with their money staying in Avon facilities versus spending their money for facilities outside of Avon. That might be paying for a pool outside of Avon or an ice skating rink outside of Avon. Do you feel that the existing community room at the senior center meets the needs of the community as a whole? This one was interesting. So you had 26% saying yes, 32% saying no, and then 42% were unsure. And really, a lot of people don't realize the availability of the community center and many of the programs. They feel that the community center is geared towards the senior center, and that's what you see in some of these comments here. The program is largely geared to daytime and seniors only. There are many groups wanting to use the room, which makes it hard to reserve. They would love to see an update and expansion for all and more programming for families. It's not large enough or versatile enough to promote enough physical activity. And then I thought it was just for seniors, so they didn't realize that the community room was available. Some people said that the cost was too high for the rental. Some people offered the recommendation for more breakout rooms for a variety of programs versus just the large community room there. And for some of the uses, they felt like it was too small. Do you think a dedicated indoor recreational facility would better serve the town's current and future needs? So this offered people a chance to respond for yes and no. The answer to yes was highly dominant, and though some of the answers that I pulled out are also noted in the green color. So reasons that people wanted a dedicated recreational facility. Their responses were the size of youth athletics is constantly growing and that gym space is hard to come by. I'm going to just pick out some of the key wording here. Rather than utilize school and coordinate with their events, it'd be nice to have a dedicated recreational facility. There's a high need for athletic options for adults and youth. There needs to be a place where youth and teens can go. There needs to be a place where older adults can go and gather. So again, we're not just talking about a recreational facility for youth. There's a high need and response here for adult recreational and passive recreational uses. I think an indoor recreational facility could possibly be a good gathering space for the town and community. People seeing it as something to pull people together. And people would like to see something that they could use all year round, and they feel like a facility such as that could help the town stand out among other neighboring towns. Some people who felt that you did not need a recreational facility said that the town does not lack the amenities. They would like to see the enhancement of indoor facilities at the schools. There are nearby facilities that offer pools and programming. Other people noted that they feel that there's enough space at the school, but that they just need the town to run the programs. And other people just said to focus on and improve what we have. And we will continue on with the outdoor facilities. So as you can see, there's a lot of information here when we're going through the demographics, indoor and outdoor. We will provide a chance at the end of the meeting for a little discussion, to answer questions. We're just going to try and continue on with our findings. And as we noted in our first public meeting, we are geared towards the facilities. That's what our master plan is for. Our report is not geared towards trails or open space. We're geared towards indoor and outdoor facilities. Okay, so this next section is focusing on outdoor facilities. Do you use outdoor facilities or programs offered from the town? 87% said yes. And then of the 13% who said no, they said they had a lack of interest and did not know what was offered. What outdoor programs would you participate in that are not currently offered? About 50-50 split here. 54% said none, and then out of the 46% that would like more programs offered, again, we have our word cloud generated here, pickleball being the dominant feature here. Additional tennis and adult programs, hiking, trails. And then out of the comments, we had 162 comments received here. There was a theme of biking, hiking, pickleball, dog parks, adult sport leagues, swimming at additional times for adults and kids. More things that aren't sports related, such as art clubs, playgrounds and toddler programs, and festivals, movie nights, and food trucks. And with that last one, that comment is on with the festivals, movie nights, and food trucks. If you remember back to one of our earlier slides, festivals and community events was one of the top lists of what people feel that they would be using in the next coming years and would like to see. So that did sort of that theme carry throughout. Are the town's existing outdoor facilities sufficiently meeting your needs for you, your family, or organization? Very close again to a 50% split. Out of the 53% that said no, I pulled out, we had 438 answers to this question, so that is a lot of strong opinions and responses coming. But here are some key ones that again were frequently mentioned throughout this answer. An off-leash dog park. They're not happy because of limited playground options and no splash pads. No dedicated outdoor pickleball courts. No outdoor place to accommodate events or festivals. Some people wish it was more walkable. Inadequate bathrooms and trash facilities. They feel that the maintenance and the upkeep of parks, trails, and outdoor features was inadequate, poorly maintained. They know that they actually have more fields than presently needed, but we don't have the infrastructure to maintain them. And more updated youth sports fields. The fields at Sperry Park are wildly inadequate. And then it goes on to note that a softball field at Sperry Park was needed to provide equity between boys and girls sports. This is a summary of feedback on how people ranked and felt about each facility. So the green smiley face means people were good and happy with that facility, and then moving down you have average and then poor conditions. Conditions of diamond fields. We didn't have any diamond fields that people felt were in good condition. So Sperry Park, Buckingham, and Avon High School were at average, and then at the lower spectrum you had Roaring Brook, Thompson Brook, and Avon Middle School. Condition of rectangular fields. Avon High School, that's the synthetic field. And then on average it was Buckingham and Fisher Meadows. Falling into the poor conditions was Avon Middle School, Roaring Brook, Pine Grove, and Thompson Brook. Condition of courts, both indoor and outdoor, Avon High School. And then, as you can see, Avon Middle School, Thompson Brook, Roaring Brook, Pine Grove, and Sycamore were average, and Thompson Brook fell into poor. Amenities, again, we didn't have anyone ranking any of the facilities with good amenities, but on average, Sycamore, Hills, Pine Grove, Avon High School, Roaring Brook, and Buckingham, people were satisfied with, and they felt that Fisher Meadows, Sperry, and the middle school in Thompson Brook had poor amenities and could be improved. Parking and pedestrian access. People were pleased with Sycamore Hills and Thompson Brook. They felt that Fisher Meadows, the high school, middle school, Pine Grove, and Roaring Brook were on average, but they felt that Sperry Park had poor parking and pedestrian access. Regarding maintenance and cleanliness, people were happy with the high school in Buckingham, and then many of the other facilities fell into the average category. What outdoor recreation programs do you anticipate needing or wanting in the next 3 to 5 years? Again, here we are again with the highest ranking here for town events and festivals. The next one was paved walking networks. So those town festivals, they're used by many. There's a universal use, and they reach much of the town. But then right up there you have the outdoor pickleball courts and playgrounds, and then youth athletic rectangular fields. All these uses have a wide variety of ages, from splash pads to pickleball and other youth sports. So people of all ages are really reaching out and partaking in this survey and showing a desire for additional programs. Which initiatives should the town of Avon prioritize? And people were allowed to select their top 3. Again, at the top of the list, we had an indoor recreational facility. And right behind it, people felt that maintaining and upgrading existing parks was also a priority. Providing safe and lit paved walking surfaces in a non-trail setting.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna catch my breath. I'll hand it back to Ryan.
Are we in the 7th inning yet? Anyone need a stretch? So this is part of the inventory and needs assessment. What we did was looked at 19 sites in town, all the parks and town facilities, as well as the educational facilities. We quantify all your facilities. We categorize them as grass diamond fields, which is baseball, softball, grass rectangle fields, and synthetic turf fields. Grass diamonds are large and small, so a 90-foot base path for full-size baseball and 60-foot diamonds for the remaining. Rectangle fields, with the trend in youth sports today of going small-sided sports, they go from extra small fields all the way to a full-size varsity level field. And then you have one large synthetic turf field. We show half fields because there's overlays or field overlays. Just like at the high school, the baseball field, you can see on the lower right, has a football area to practice and play on. So for safety, you don't want to schedule 2 events at the same time. And for the purposes of the study, we provide equal amount of time to each. So baseball in the spring and football in the fall, or rectangle sports in the fall. So we quantify all of our fields, and we look at how many hours each field should have. North Carolina State University put out a study. It's an basically an industry standard that we follow for expected field conditions based on the hours of field use. And this is for grass rectangle fields only. Baseball fields are a little different. It's a more passive game, even though there's a lot of action. It's mostly concentrated around the infield. That's why you have skinned infields, because there's a lot of wear and tear on there. So for a municipality or a town, you try to achieve the good field conditions. And if you have a range of 400 to 600 hours per year, you should be able to sustain those field conditions. There's a range in hours because every field is constructed different. The grading, what the soil type is, does it drain well? Does a root zone mix drain well? Does the subsurface drain well? Do neither drain well? So there's a variety of hours. For the purposes of the study, we use 500 hours. We take the average for the rectangle fields and 800 hours for diamond fields, which are practical hours. And then 1,400 hours for synthetic turf, and that excludes lights, winter use, and summer use. People are like, well, synthetic turf you could run on that 365 days a year, but there's a limit on what people will actually want to utilize the turf fields. Late at night, super early in the morning, there's zoning ordinances. And during extreme heat, it's not really desirable to play on as well. And we also look at the peak times of use for these fields. It's in the fall and spring sports. So basically the chart down below, we take your number of fields, we take the recommended hours per field type, So like a large diamond, you have a field and a half, and you have 800 hours. So you have a capacity to use those fields 1,200 hours a year. And as you go down the line, you have 8 small fields, small diamond fields with 6,400 hours of capacity. The synthetic turf field, you say, well, there's only 1,400 hours, but remember that excludes lights, winter, and summer, and you're actually using it 1,600 hours. Large fields, you have 4,500 hours of use, medium 3,750, small 2,500, and 1,000 hours in extra small fields. So based on the needs assessment, we evaluated every program in town, and they gave us the amount of users, the amount of sports teams they have, how many hours of practice per week they use the fields, and how many games per week and the duration of those practices. And we included both school and youth sports and adult sports. And so this really tells us at a high level is that the town has enough facilities to sustain your sports programs. And it's a question of, do you have desirable sports facilities to sustain your programs? And as you heard from some of the feedback, the level and the condition of the fields, some people are not finding them desirable to schedule the time on. So then another chart. So that's the high level overview, and then so that's looking at all your facilities as a whole, and we actually break it down to every field at every site, and we really look for what fields are being utilized the most or overutilized. So you can see the ones in the with the red star, like Fisher Meadows, large rectangle field 5 is getting over 900 hours of use. So it's getting a lot of wear and tear. Avon Middle School, large rectangle field 1 is around that 900 hours, and then Avon High School, that's getting around 860 hours. So what that tells us is, from what we also heard from the community, that several areas have poor draining fields, and some of these are the more desirable fields and potentially drain better and are highly scheduled. Some of the green stars are fields that are being underutilized. And it's both baseball and softball and rectangle fields.
As Ryan mentioned, it could be because those fields don't drain well, so people don't want to schedule other practices there.
Yeah, and some of the issues we heard too are the size constraints. It allows for a certain size field, but doesn't allow for enough run out for safety purposes. And condition of the field was another highly talked about topic. So here, this highlights those comments we heard: poor drainage and field maintenance, scheduling conflicts between high school sports and many sports needing to use the same field. That's the turf field. Because they're poor draining, they remain unplayable for a long period of time, so you can't really depend on them. Some programs are saying we limit their registration because of lack of available fields. They're not maintained and unsafe. There's a desperate need of added field space to provide equitable opportunities. And people are saying they're turning away opportunities to host district and all-star games because of the condition of the facilities. And Emily will talk about the indoor facilities.
So similar to the outdoor facilities, again, we gathered the use from sports, from the recreation department, regarding how long and how many times a week they are using their facilities. This is a total annual use hours. From the feedback we heard, we're going to sort of, on the next couple slides, we're going to take a look at some of the areas where we were hearing about constraints at the community center and at the gym spaces. Being the winter time was some of those constraining hours. So these charts are focusing on the community room in a typical winter week. The top one here focuses at a 11:30 closing time. That's the time that the community center is available to. So as we start to look at when the facility is available, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Saturday, they're allowed to block 2 events at 7 hours each. So you have 14 hours total on Saturday and 14 hours total on Sunday. Those are the hours that are available throughout the week. That multiplies out to 100.5 hours available per week. On a typical week, 53.25 of those hours are reserved, with 28 of those reserved hours going to the senior center because they block out 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Through the recreation department, they book out on average a typical week 25.25 hours. So you see at a 11:30 closing time, it's booked 53% of the time. Now let's look at what happens if you go to, say, an 8:30 closing time with one event per weekend day. Look at how that reserved rate goes up. So the trend tends to be there's some space available, but not at desired hours for its users. That's a similar trend that we see here with, again, we're taking a focus on the gyms in the wintertime. We're looking at a typical week because we can isolate those hours and sort of grasp them. Down on the left-hand side, we have our facilities, which is Avon High School Large Gym, Avon High School Small Gym, Avon Middle School, Thompson Brook, Pine Grove, and Roaring Brook. Underneath those, we have the hours, again, that they're available, Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. These facilities are open till 10:30. So again, it's available till 10:30 in the evening. So we multiply out those hours, and we'll just focus on the high school. So it's available for 69 hours per week. Out of those 69 hours, 45 are reserved weekly. 37 of those 45 hours are booked by the Board of Ed, while 8 go to the rec department. And at that time, that's 65% booked. And as you can see, that goes down for each facility. Thompson Brook, again, closing at 10:30, is over 62% booked. And a lot of the places that we hear that there's constraints, Avon High School can't get in there. The middle school can't get in there. Thompson Brook can't get in there. Those are the most sought out and desired facilities. Again, there's some available space, but the trend is that it's not at those desired hours that will work with the teams and families. This also does not include that the travel basketball, they outsource 240 hours to Avon Old Farms because it's just not available through the town facilities. I should note also, yes, down here at the bottom, also note that this does not include boy or girl or Boy Scout groups renting the spaces or pickleball or badminton during the winter schedule. Pickleball and badminton ran through the recreation department, takes a break during the winter months because there's just not available gym space during the desired hours to run those programs. Now let's take a look at the same schedule, but with an 8:30 closing time. You can start to see the constraints on the high school, at the middle school, at Thompson Brook. They're up at the 82%, 68%, 81%. So again, still some time available, just not at those desired hours, at the desired facilities. Continuing on with that, with a typical for the gym time in the winter, you might want to say, well, who's using all of the gym time? This pie chart breaks down out of the hours available and people that were using them. You can see it's almost a 30% split between travel basketball, Board of Ed, and rec basketball. We also have badminton in there. Again, no time to badminton or pickleball because they can't even book any time because they can't do that during the hours wanted. A little bit of time goes to little folks and Avon Youth Lacrosse and adult basketball. The feedback that we were getting for the indoor space was it was difficult to secure indoor court time for adult sports at the preferred hours. Requests for additional youth and adult classes cannot be accommodated due to lack of space. We're turning away players due to lack of space. They can't meet their goal of practice hours due to lack of space. The building fee is prohibitive. People have had issues accessing the building in the evening, and to that point, they were canceling meetings because they couldn't get in. Due to lack of availability, they're supplementing at private locations and no indoor space to accommodate winter clinics. So when you're hearing all these things, it's like, well, how are things trending? From the information that we received through the sports enrollment teams that provided their enrollment, this is a total participants trend. And we tried to go back to 2018. When you see the dip that is from COVID, as I'm sure you all can pick up on that, but as you see that there's a steady increase. Yep.
Yeah, and on this chart, it shows almost a 200% increase in 5 years. And you'll see on the next slide the different sports. And so that's a huge increase, but what happened is new sports came on board. It wasn't the same sports that were playing and you just got a huge boom in population. It was more of different offerings.
Right, so lacrosse came on board, Empower Running, they opened up for boys and girls, travel baseball came on board, and travel basketball program really took off. The Little League was maintaining their high enrollment, rec basketball was maintaining their high enrollment, softball is increasing at a higher rate, soccer remains consistent. And then the one in blue that's Girl Scouts. That is not part of the sports enrollment, but I want to include it because there's a strong base of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts here in Avon. Not many communities have that, but here from back to 2018, they're consistently around like that 300 to 350 participants, which is a significant number when you look at how it relates to other sports.
Yeah, so the significance of this data for us is looking at that total inventory of facilities you do have and see if we see any upward trends in participation. We also take that data and compare it to your school enrollment that gets updated every year and what type of growth the community is going to sustain. So then we talk about if we need to add facilities, expand, or reorganize the facilities to gain efficiency. That helps us plan for the next, for the immediate 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and 10 to 15 years of trying to project that out.
So our next steps. Tonight we were here to communicate our findings from our inventory and from our survey and stakeholder groups. The next steps will be to develop the strategic planning and development of recommendations. We'll be doing that with our committee as well as other departments in the town. And as Ryan mentioned, we're gearing for our recommendations towards the end of the summer, completion of our recommendations for the end of the summer, beginning of the fall.
That concludes the presentation.
Is all this going to be available on websites?
Yep, Grace will be posting that. Is that going to be through the Recreation and Parks Department?
We'll post it on the town website.
Town website.
You do an inventory of indoor meeting space
like particularly with the Girl Scouts? I know that's been
So what's interesting, and some of the comments that we received back, like from the Girl Scout groups, let me see, I think, where's my next? Oh, let me go back to this slide. So I reached out to them after we sort of completed this because like what jumped out to me was the middle school cafeteria. I was like, oh, there might be an opportunity for them to use that space. They provide feedback that they had tried to use a lot of the school facilities, but they had been not able to get access so frequently that they had to stop scheduling because they just couldn't hold their meetings. So that was the feedback that we received from them regarding some of the school facilities.
I have a question about the needs assessment, the sport enrollment trends slide. You have Connecticut Soccer Network, and I'm just curious, I see travel soccer, I don't see rec soccer. So what's Connecticut Soccer Network? Is that?
It's like they run a camp.
Oh, okay. So it's not, like travel soccer is Avon Soccer Club, and then rec
soccer's not on there.
Rec soccer's not on there. So I'm just curious, I didn't know. I don't know what that was. Okay, so maybe we could get rec soccer on that, just to see how that's going.
Which I provided the numbers for.
Okay.
I'm here for Avon Soccer.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
So Connecticut Soccer Network is a train, like a skills thing?
I guess I have no
Okay.
idea. I mean, it's something else. It's not related to Avon Soccer Club.
Right, that's what I figured. Just curious.
Yeah,
Is it
so,
travel soccer. I
so
can't
we're,
see
yeah,
the
so,
numbers from here.
it's travel soccer.
Actual
That's-
numbers are in there, but
Yeah,
I could
but it's
probably
not
find right after
necessarily
that.
recreation, recreation soccer.
Right. Okay.
Just for my own knowledge, and anyone in the room has the answer, who makes the decision on who gets priority over gym time? I'm new to this game, so who makes the decision on like, all right, soccer's gonna get it from 8 to 9? Is it a town meeting? Like, I guess, how does that work?
There's on the Board of Ed website, there's a prioritization list, and that's, so you could tune into that, and it really talks about the different user groups and levels of participation and who gets priority of those gym spaces.
Oh, okay.
With the main priority going for the Board of Ed facilities for the students. They do have a block of time for their fields and indoor courts that they are blocked out until, and then they're available after.
So school sports fall under that Board of Education slice of pie?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
like they have priority, like the varsity kids down at, even at Fisher Meadows,
yeah,
like
okay.
not even just at the schools,
Sure.
but they have priority because the varsity soccer team needs to practice.
Okay, gotcha.
Um,
All right, thanks everyone.
I have a couple comments. Is 600 people good response for 19,000 person count? Like you said, that was a great response, and to me that seems very disappointing. I don't know. I'm not a statistician by any stretch of the imagination, but
that was a large survey though. That took a while.
it did.
So.
It was a bit of a bear, but I don't know. Is that is this representative of a traditional community? Do we think this is representative of Avon? I guess would be the question. Or
It's close. It's not as high of participation rate as other surveys we put out. Some other surveys were more single park focused, where we got over 5% of the community. Is it a good participation? Yes. Is it excellent? No.
Well, how many surveys went out? That's a very big question. I know, I'm asking them all wrong. But I would think it would depend on how many were really sent out. There's 19,000 people in town, but I don't think 19,000 people even saw it, right? I mean, Grace, what do you think? I mean, I don't know what your blast is that you do out to the town, how many that is versus those of us with community organizations who send it to all of our members.
right?
When you add all that up, I don't know if it gets to 19. It probably doesn't.
I mean, there's always going to be people that are completely
When you do an
tuned
e-blast
in.
to the town with this, how many people did it go to?
I think our e-blast news and announcements opt-in is about 1,100. We also put it out on the town's Facebook page,
Okay.
which has about 1,000
Yeah, I think
followers.
it's
It went out,
Right,
it went out to
good
the,
point.
it was in a press release in the
Yeah.
Valley Press, so that goes out to everybody, I believe.
Yeah, and then
Everybody sees
churches,
the Valley Press.
organizations like the historical, like we sent it out to a lot of people. But overall, I don't think 19,000 people saw it.
I would,
Sounds like not even close.
probably not, but that's,
I mean, that could be
short of,
kids. And
short
then
of
there's
doing
people probably
it.
who just
Right.
don't get it to begin with, and then there's probably people who just
Yeah.
have no interest in sports or rec or
Right,
whatever,
right,
so that
right.
takes some more people out. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
because
hear
at your
what you're
first
saying.
meeting, you asked for a lot of non-sports people like us to participate, but when the survey came out, there wasn't a place for us to really participate in the survey. So you got our stickies, but it doesn't end up in this.
Which we get your feedback from the asset mapping, when you were at the first public hearing. So that's why.
So how does that get into the report? Into your survey? How does that fit?
Yeah, so it's essentially providing multiple streams of input, recognizing that not everybody's going to answer a survey, not everybody's going to come to the in-person meetings, even working with, there's a finite amount of time available to outreach to everybody as well. So we do the best we can with the resources we have. There are surveys that can be conducted like a statistically valid survey can be conducted, which is a whole nother level that wasn't part of this process.
I have a question. I recall with Fisher Meadow, when my son was doing soccer, that the high school teams claimed the fields till 5 o'clock, and then travel could come in at 5. But the high school is not using all of the fields. So you had unused field space. And for some of the younger kids, it would have been nice to be able to go down to Fisher Meadow and use it and be home for dinner time. And that wasn't ever allowed. And so I don't know if the policies can change or be a little more flexible. And I don't know why there's that rule where it's exclusively, school teams, but they're not using 100% of the fields. There's something, to me, as a town person, it's like, there's something wrong with that. It seemed a little bit broken.
Well, a lot of that is you don't have coaches. Like if you want to have a little kid start at 3 o'clock,
We did.
you
We
know.
had somebody
I
available.
mean, yeah.
We had people to drive. We were all like set up and then we were shut down. We wanted to. Because
Yeah, because the board
we
had the
didn't
permit
realize.
till 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we didn't realize there was a policy, but we had it already. It would have been nice to have kids home, your kid home for dinner. Yeah. Family dinner. So,
I think what might also want to be portrayed in this report somewhere so people understand that are intimately involved, like the Board of Ed fields, like the school fields are maintained by the Board of Ed. The Fisher Meadows and people, again, can speak better than I can, are maintained by the town. So there's actually 2 sets of people mowing, 2 sets of people lining the fields. The school can't put, which I agree with, but separate thing, certain chemicals on the school fields. So you go drive up to Pine Grove and you're like, oh my God, it's full of dandelions. This is a terrible condition. But there's reasons behind some of this stuff that, the average person just driving up may be like, what's the problem? Why is this so weedy? Why is this so unmaintained? But I mean, there's a duality and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in terms of the town maintaining certain things and the Board of Ed maintains all the school fields. So I don't know if maybe we could, as part of this report, and especially if it goes out to people that aren't, like I said, intimately involved, would maybe have some sort of explanation as to, some of those inner workings. So when people maybe be like, wow, I didn't realize that we couldn't put chemicals on the school fields, and so that's why they look like this.
Right.
Or, just some work, because, I don't feel like everybody has necessarily the knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes and how, there's a lot of complaining about maintenance and I'm involved in the Avon soccer club, but I have kids in sports and we've gone all over the place playing, and our fields people complain about our fields. They haven't been around much. because Fisher Meadows is gorgeous. Yes, it floods. It's a farm in the river. You're not gonna stop Mother Nature. It may drain some time, but try going to like, you know, playing in the dirt in West Hartford, or I mean, I just feel like I don't know how to solve the problem, but the people
Yeah,
are
so-
asking
Are
for
you
so
seeing
much.
on the
and
report
Whoever's
what
doing the grass
quality of our
Fisher
fields
Meadows.
actually are?
yeah, it's the town.
So these are all great questions. These are part of our next steps. So
Okay.
we've evaluated them.
So you guys know about all this?
We look at the hours you put on your fields. We look at the maintenance practices, and as park consultants, as field consultants, as school consultants, we see things in all different communities, and things that work really well, and things that don't work as well. And so coming into your community, we evaluate what you do have, how are they working, we make recommendations, we work with the town, and yes, everything you're talking about, restrictions on pesticides, herbicides, on school-age children, irrigation is a huge conversation that needs to be had. When you can put down some of those chemicals, organic lawn care, and there's also, you know, in an ideal world, you have all the money in the world to take care of your facilities at the most high level, and so it's we are looking at what industry standards are based on types of fields and the amount of hours and input you should be putting on your fields, and we'll look and see if you might need to increase operation budget from year to year to sustain a little bit better conditions. And then part of the recommendation too, sports fields aren't like home lawn care. They get beat up all the time. There's a much higher level of expectation and performance because there's hundreds of feet running on it every day. So there's a lot of science that goes behind developing a good quality sports field. From the surface grading to the root zone mix to the subsurface drainage to the subsurface grading to light exposure or field orientation. There's so many things involved with getting quality sports facilities. So we'll be recommending completing some of those studies in the next steps as well.
So I just want to make sure I'm interpreting these tables properly for the indoor use. So obviously, so the total weekly hours available is outside of school hours and weekends, and then you're showing us what the BOE reserves and then what rec reserves, because those are the first two priorities, right? So then beyond that, so you're just saying those available hours, that's what has been used, is what's left for the other outside groups to divvy up. But you're not showing us how it got divvied up, right? Is that something that?
No, we just evaluate. So there's a lot that goes on to plan fields and time. The athletic director he's a mastermind of like shifting people around and scheduling gym time and field time. The recreation department is as well. That's a full-time job to schedule, and you know, sometimes towns have a central clearinghouse for a single person, while rec still schedules their fields and schools schedule their facilities. There's a central clearinghouse to understand all the use from both school and town side, and they're the point person and they're in charge, and so when those off requests come for additional time, field time, gym time, they'll know right away, oh no, we can't do that because.
Right.
So
This does include the travel basketball.
It does,
It
okay.
does.
So when it says 65% reserved, and that's saying there's 35% that went unused, or 35% went and was used by
Sure.
a group? Like, I guess I'm trying to understand how much is going to waste, even though I know it might be like at 9:30 at night when nobody wants it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand, like,
we'll go to the next.
is it a question of, are we underutilizing, or are we underutilizing because it's at wrong times? Is it because of priorities? I'm just trying to like wrap my brain around that.
Sure. Right. So first you have the available hours Monday through Friday, starting from 2:30 to 10:30.
Yeah.
So that includes the block of time that the Board of Ed
Right.
reserves out. And then Correct, you have the 8 a.m. to 10:30 on Saturday and 8 a.m. to 10:30 on Sunday. So there are large amounts of times on Saturday and Sunday that are very available for some facilities. And so that does sort of skew your weekly use, but this is just a total weekly, yeah.
And this is based on actual use data that we received, and it's as good as the data we received. Did we receive all data? No. Did we receive the majority of the data? I would say yeah, we got really good response and feedback from all the user groups.
Did you get data though from the Board of Ed and the Rec Department?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yep.
As well as the survey.
Yep.
So this is, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Having run a soccer program like Avon Soccer in my own town, scheduling fields and time, you could block out, like ideally for most flexibility, you have volunteers running youth programs, and they have a window of time where they're actually able to get out of work and actually coach kids. So that's like the sweet spot. And then on weekends, you're also up against other activities, not only sports, but you have religious activities, family activities on early mornings on Sunday, or like later in the evening for kids, for youth sports. Like 9 o'clock is kind of an acceptable cutoff time. And then that time after 9 is really, having played as an adult after my youth career, I lived in the Boston proper, and we were getting gym time past midnight because it was available. So in a community like Avon, it's a more family-oriented community, and everyone is like the downtime and the shutdown time of town is a lot earlier. So translating, yes, to answer your question, these are based on the data that we received. That's how much it's being reserved based on that 10:30 shut-off time. So yes, there is 35% that is not being utilized.
But you're saying this includes travel bags?
Yes.
Because it just says BOE and rec, and it adds up to 45 hours, so that's why I was confused. So is it falling under?
Travel basketball is in there.
Okay.
The rec, I sort of grouped,
It with rec?
yeah, travel basketball with rec,
Okay,
exactly.
so I know where to look for
Yeah.
it. Okay, so it's not like there's no time, it's just not desirable.
Yeah,
It
so,
seems to be the thing.
right, so when you look at the 10:30 closing time, we'll just look at the high school gym, 65% was reserved, and then
Yeah.
you go to 8:30 closing time, you're up at 82%. So that's when you start getting into, well, even at the 65%, you're feeling that scheduling crunch, and it's hard
Yeah.
to maneuver and make it work at that 65%. But then say you go down to the 8:30, which is more of your realistic
Mhm.
shutdown time, you see it's at 82%.
Yeah, there's communities that have 100% booking time, and it's actually almost too much because you can't account for, and that's fields and indoor, you can't account for cancellations, rain dates, inclement weather, rescheduling, bus breaks down. It doesn't provide any flexibility, and they're literally bursting at the seams. So you do have some available time, but again, it's gonna come down to the community and the town leadership on, do we want to provide more available space and time for people that is more desirable and more realistic.
And it seems like it might be helpful to take out, in terms of like looking at the practices, take out the Saturday and Sunday, because most of the sports leagues are trying to fit practices in during the week, and the games are just on Saturday and
The
Sunday.
games are used on Saturday and Sunday
Yeah.
mostly.
And so it'd be interesting to see the percent reserved time that's just for the weekdays.
Mhm.
Because I feel like there were a lot of complaints about lack of space for those practices. But if you look at Pine Grove School, they still have like 70% of space left.
Right.
So is it that because that's just all weekend time, or?
I think it's the type of facility.
Yeah.
Also that the desired one, from my understanding, is the high school and Thompson Brook and middle school.
And to
They
schedule.
don't maintain the fields at Pine Grove and everywhere else. house. Like that may show availability, but they don't.
Well, this is just
That's
indoor.
indoor gym.
This one is
Oh,
just
I'm
indoor
sorry.
gym.
But like a
Yeah,
small
okay.
gym is 38% at the high school. That surprised me, because I feel like that's a good practice, facility.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Like, it just seems like for travel basketball, I mean, there must be reasoning behind it, but to outsource a whole program to Avon Old Farms, but then you see there's just like a gap, and like, why are we sending travel basketball to Avon Old Farms if there's large percentages of time? And so I just wonder if it's a weekend, weekday issue.
I mean, but I think part of it too, the outsourcing is because there's so many at a certain age range, and they don't want to be practicing at like 8:30 at night, which I get too.
And they have different size basketball
And,
heights
yeah.
for the hoops. Like you can't have your Pine Grove age kids practicing at Avon Middle School because the baskets are
They don't have that
higher.
AOF either.
They don't have
so-
availability. There's a lot.
Yeah, my son was in the rec basketball at Pine Grove, and I would say we probably had 2 of the weeks that we didn't have to be on a split court, maybe 3 for the season. Otherwise, we had to split a court with somebody else
Yeah.
all the time. But part of it was because we were on the Monday crew, so there was holidays and snow days and things like that. But there was no makeup space.
Yeah, and that's the same with my kids, and so that's why I'm like, it doesn't fit the numbers.
It doesn't fit it, and I think a lot of that has to do with my kids definitely are not going to be there for 8 o'clock practice. They're going to be in bed. So, yeah, that I assume that's part of it, and definitely not on the weekends either. The weekends for games. So, that, yeah, I'm with Aaron. That number didn't represent what I saw this year. So I don't know how that.
It might be helpful to know the age range, maybe, because I'm assuming, they don't have small facilities at AOF, and I know when my daughter did travel basketball, it was on the older grades that she was having to go, especially 7th, 8th grade, they couldn't get middle school, so then they were at AOF. So, but they conceivably are older, and they were doing it at like 8:30 at night already, but not being able to be at the gym. So maybe there's just more kids at a younger age and they are pushing later, which, is pushing the older kids to AOF and it's pushing the younger kids later, which they don't want to see either. So maybe it's not, like this isn't reflective of needing more space. Like I'm trying to wrap my brain around, it looks like we have the space, it's not at the right time, but so maybe, I don't know, break it down by age or something, or a little bit to understand. I mean, this could be something that Ruth could get us to, or we may already have,
She
you know what I
scheduled
mean?
it.
Right, like it's just in terms of like breakdown of the age ranges, like, I don't know, so.
Yeah, these are summary charts.
Right.
We have
I'm sure you have it all.
hundreds or thousands
I
of
know.
rows of data that has all that information.
Right,
So we try to present it in a fashion
Yeah.
that works. Can we take a little bit of a deeper dive to separate that stuff out? Yeah, I think what we're hearing is that it's really, there are stresses at those peak hours, right? That's really when it matters.
which means we might need
But
more
when-
space.
But when we talk about expansion of programs and adult sports and adult programming, like sometimes those later hours are that's the window of opportunity to do that.
Right,
But if we're talking about peak demand time and feeling the stress of scheduling and sharing gym time and all that, that's another issue of, and that's what I said, if the town wants to take on that challenge of providing more available space at a reasonable time.
yep.
In your experience, would adding, like if hypothetically in a dream world, if we build this beautiful indoor rec center that had, say for example, 2 basketball courts in it, would that actually debulk a lot of this conflict that's happening and open up, again, I'm new to the kid game, so I don't know much to say, but would 2 courts really assist that much in deconflicting a lot of this?
It would be a numbers exercise, and that's really the next steps, right? So based on your current program, so for instance, if you go back to this, did you summarize the total amount of hours in that chart available, or it's just showing, oh yeah, the hours, and that's the weekly available hours. So say you have a season for basketball that's 8 weeks, is it? Is it longer than 8 weeks?
That's no problem.
Yeah, so 8 to 10 weeks. So say, for this conversation, I'll say 10 weeks because it's easier to multiply. You have 550 available hours based on these times.
Mhm.
So adding one gym would give you that 550 hours. Another 550 hours. Adding 2 would give you 1,100 hours. So it's that symbol of math that you extrapolate out. And then based on all of the needs and uses for that peak hour, is that enough time? And how do you prioritize that time as well?
So other than winter sports for basketball, how often are the school gyms being utilized outside? Because I feel like we've been deterred from using the school facilities on the weekend by being hit with a large cost to be able to do so. But if they're already open, and there's already a custodian there, I'm not understanding why we aren't able to utilize those other spaces, the cafeteria or larger meeting rooms.
Yeah, the Board of Ed does have a blocking of time for Saturdays, not on Sundays, that they block out for their use. I can't remember off the top of my head if it's 12:30. But I don't know.
So that was, yeah.
We have not been using those spaces except for after school hours, which gets difficult because YMCA childcare is there till 6, so we can only go in from 6 to like 8 for meeting times. Again, we're competing with the different scout groups and the plays and all the other things that are going on, which is why it makes it difficult for us to be able to use the schools, which I think was Dan's question originally.
So do you think that there's additional clubs, like through the Board of Ed you were just mentioning?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
And not having a way to centralize how we're registering and
Right.
seeing what's open really makes it hard because you have to find the right person,
Right.
email the right person, hope they email you back. My kids aren't in the school system, so I don't know who any of the people are that I would have
Right.
to contact. It gets very difficult. And then on the weekends, we're basically told unless we're paying a starting at $200 to use it for a couple hours, we can't do it, which is very prohibitive.
Right.
That is a great comment about a centralization, and I think you mentioned it, that some towns have, because it is very clunky to try to, like for my soccer teams, I've tried to get, I know I coach basketball too, and I work with Ruth all the time, so I know when the permit ends for the rec for basketball, and if you want to try to go into the middle school, to the gym and do some indoor soccer stuff, you have to submit a building use request directly to the middle school. Like you have to go to each school individually, submit a request form, which is not online, by the way. You have to print it and write it out, and then wait for them to get back to you versus a centralized system, like you were saying, where you can just, submit your request and see what happens, and I know.
I will say it is a full-time position, and it is a very special person that could pull it off.
It is, and you work, like Tim, I work with Tim Filon at the high school and with Ruth, and it's a huge jigsaw puzzle to try to maintain all this stuff, and it seems like some centralization would be very beneficial.
Yeah, another comment that came up during the last meeting we had was based on the size of the community and comparing it to the National Recreation and Parks data. We did take a look at that, and the big takeaway is your community is in a certain demographic in terms of number of people. It's like 10 to 20,000 people. The next bracket is 20 to say 35,000 or 40,000 people. So you're at the cusp, you're at the high side of a smaller bracket and at the low side of the next bracket. And the big difference between those two are the amount of amenities that are being served to the community. There's a big jump in percentage of, once you get to that 20,000 and above, you really start supplying more opportunity to your community. So it's a question for the town, and we'll be working on this with our group on what's your town's capacity for population growth based on zoning and planning. And knowing that you're at that cusp, it's a good data set to say it's worth exploring further if you want to really invest in more facilities and quite frankly, make it more of an attractive place for people to come in and that changeover of community over time.
So if there are any comments that you don't want to say out publicly, but you do want to provide feedback, you can write them on a note and place it on the board, and we can receive that information. Or you can always email the town department at Grace, and she can provide the comments back to us.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.